So, Johan, welcome to Ellegården, to Manifesto headquarters.
Yeah.
It was really nice to have you here. We just spoke on the phone, what was it, like a week ago or something like that, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Where I found out that pretty much at the exact same time, you and I both moved from Copenhagen out here to the small island of Fyn. And now you're here.
Really, really nice to be here. Yeah, thank you for the invitation. Really nice place you got here.
Thanks. So we just had lunch out in the sunshine and had a little walk through the town and a little chats, and
now we decided, neighbors and
chat with the neighbors, and it's the local gentlemen's club meeting here this evening, so you got to meet some of the guys
privilege
that we meet around. And my voice is I lost my voice yesterday, so hopefully we can make it way through the conversation now as well. So what are we going to talk about?
Good question.
Maybe let's start where we know each other from.
Good idea.
So we met each other in a spiritual fitness center in Copenhagen. Called Tinkøj, which you've been running for how many years now?
It's 7 years, a little more than 7 years now. 2014 we started.
And it's moved from being in Nørrebro now to being right in the center of the town.
2018 we moved into.
And you made it through Corona.
Yes, we're still there. It's we're struggling a little, but we're still there, and it looks better now with the no lockdowns and so on.
Good. Okay. Well, I kind of asked you, would you mind if we went all the way back and you spoke about like what made you want to start a spiritual fitness center, or like what is that in Copenhagen? And especially coming from you were actually a software developer working with artificial intelligence.
20 years ago, in the year 2000, I was a software developer, and I worked with speech recognition systems. I lived in New York at that time, and there I had this. I told you about this experience I had, which was a turning point for me and has been an inspiration for me since. And it was also kind of the inspiration for Tinkøj, actually.
Could you give us just as much as you feel comfortable sharing? What happened?
It's what I will tell you what physically happened. I was working on a Sunday afternoon, and I was on my way home back to the room. I was fortunate to find a very small room on the center of Manhattan. It was like 5 square meters, very small. but it was really expensive. But it was really, okay. I learned later that it was really hard to find a room at the center of Manhattan. So, but I was.
And how old were you there?
I was 26 at this time.
So young man out, establishing himself out in the world in Manhattan.
I came from
middle of where you're supposed to be, right?
Came from the northern part of Denmark, and then landed in New York, and it was just like, okay. I remember the first time I got up from the subway station and saw these skyscrapers, and it was quite a town to be.
You're from Northern Jutland?
Northern Jutland,
okay, kind of like real country zone in Denmark in some ways, right?
So there was just a lot of it was a period with like New York, it's a city with high intensity and a lot of energy in this city.
And this is just after 9/11, actually.
Just before 9/11.
Just before 9/11.
It was in December 2000.
December 2000.
So I lived there for 7 months, and so this experience was in December. It was the 17th. I sometimes mix the dates, but it's the 17th of December 2000, Sunday. And I was on my way home from this office I worked in, and walked down on Union Square in the middle of Manhattan, and I see these 2 people waiting for the subway station. Man waiting, just waiting like you normally do, and the other was this woman, like a black woman, dancing, singing. She was, I would label her as ferociously happy.
Ferociously happy.
Okay. And it spooked me a little. Like I also spooked, but I said, okay, she's crazy. Said, why would you sing and dance when there's no audience? And that was a thought I had. And for me at that time, there should be some setting to be happy. Like you you don't dance if there's not an audience, and so on and so on. Strange ideas, but yeah. So I said, okay, she's a crazy woman. I kept a little distance from her. She was singing this loud gospel music, and I was having my music in my earplugs, and it was on heavy metal. Turned that up, and but still, you know, I experienced this shift, and I knew the shift was because of her. She ignited something. She, you know, her vibration was infectious. You know, it lifted me up. So I suddenly realized a lot about my, you know, what had driven me, who was Johan as a person in this world. You know, I suddenly knew I had something completely different I had to do, and that it was important, and it was like I knew God was a reality. Also, I knew instantly God was up to this point. I was dived into natural science and believed in natural science as, you know, that's a way to explain the world. I wouldn't say I was an atheist, but God was out of my periphery. Yeah. So, but then, okay, God is real. There's this, God is real. Yeah.
We spoke a little bit about how like we were kind of like just really reinforced this kind of very materialist understanding of reality. And how, like, you know, what a human being is, it's something physical. And how, you know, this experience that you've had, that any person who's open to the idea and just thinks about it a little bit will realize, like, there's something about being a human being which is more than just the physical cells that I inhabit, actually. And there's something different from a human being to any other animal as well.
I feel a very kinship to the animals and plants, and some. I don't know if the difference to plants and animals is that. Of course, we are very different behavior and so on, but in essence, I don't know how.
There's something shared in life as well.
Yes, we share this life.
Yeah, maybe we have souls. Maybe animals have souls. Maybe plants have souls. It's hard. That's harder to talk about, right? So,
I think what basically happened was, you know, there's a Danish word called forundringsparathed. In English, it would be something like you are open to the marvel of life, also the mystery of life. That you don't really know anything, but there's just this wow. So that was what was triggered in me back then, and I realized, okay, that's because what Johan was up to this point was like, you could say it was an intrusion on my consciousness, because it was a false identity, and
which had served you well up to that point, I guess, to a certain extent. But the time had come where you needed to step out of the categories that you inherited from before, or from society or whatever it was, and see like the raw.
And it felt very important. Like, I wouldn't even say to exaggerate, but I guess it's not an exaggeration, but the old me was like dead in a way. You know, it was like a dead form. It was like I was.
We talk a bit about zombies. That's what I think of. Or you also spoke about awakening, like waking up.
So I guess, you know, waking up to a deeper reality, and there's many. Also, this was later. I have later participated in plants, doing plant medicine, like psilocybin and ayahuasca and so on, and have these experience years later. Have given me the perspective of what, we are in this mesh of different consciousness structures that is like moving around, and like we sometimes are engulfed by one consciousness, and we think we are ourselves, but we are actually under the influence of something that's not ourselves. And the urgency I felt back then that this is something really important is still with me. It has been with me for these 22 years almost now. And
Okay. Well, let's keep that. Let's talk about. Okay, you had this experience in New York.
Yeah.
You were a software engineer.
Yeah.
I think a short like what happened from there to you then started Tsinqi to where you are today. Actually.
Yeah. So Tsinqi was started. It was actually 14 years later. I started Tsinqi, but then I had this new, okay, this is something important. I need to be true to this new state of being, you could say. And this led me on different paths. And there's some, like in 2005, up to 2005, I was studying, I was diving into literature about psychology and religion and spirituality. And I was really like isolating myself a little, and also, my friends and my family still viewed me as this. Johan is like this, like we do with each other. Yeah.
So it started off as kind of like you went monk mode with a portion of your life.
Yeah,
and started,
it was very ascetic and very studying and And then
the typical masculine response, right? It's like, okay, I'm gonna figure this out now before I start showing it. Like I'm not crazy, and I need to figure this.
Yeah. So that's it. Okay, I need to understand what's going on, and I remember taking quotes from books and storing them like a squirrel would store nuts in something like. I was really also like a thirst for knowledge, and it was a good thing in that period of my life. And then one day I was writing on an article about Kabbalah, the Jewish Kabbalah tradition, and I have written one short article in English, and I was translating this article to Danish. And then under the translation, something, I was like something about what is the nature of evil. Kabbalah also deals with this. And when writing about this, I suddenly felt the presence of something not beneficial, like in my apartment, in my around me. Like at that time, I labeled it like, okay, I have seen the devil, Lucifer, I called it. I've seen something that's not good, and it was like looking into the eye of Saruman or something like that. It has seen me also.
Kind of like what lots of people have with Putin right now, right? Like we're not talking about something like very airy fairy, but it actually like a lot of people when they see and talk about Putin right now, they see the incarnation of evil on earth. Yeah. And there's a deep feeling of discomfort, right?
Yeah. They see something. For them, they see evil outside of themselves. I guess you could say that was also what good point. I saw evil as something outside of myself, and now it has its evil eye on me. So what I did was I moved. I can see in retrospective, I moved with energy. I left my apartment, and I actually. For 2 weeks, I moved around in Aalborg. I lived in Aalborg at that time. I hiding during the day and walking around during the night. It was like a semi-psychotic state of mind.
Okay, so this was far stronger than just the Putin thing. But
for me, it was like a real strong experience. Yeah. And then after these 2 weeks, it was like, okay, now it's settled, and I talked to my mother, and then to comfort my mother at that time, she wanted me to go to talk to a psychiatrist. Not strange, because it was strange behavior I did at that time. So I went and.
So would you call it was like an anxiety attack of some kind?
It was like a spiritual crisis, and anxiety was definitely a part of it. It was like I was facing something in myself. But also, you could say like a collective shadow side we have about, I would say a collective, maybe the collective ego or something. I'm not quite sure yet. Actually, it was just.
I heard someone talking about. It's interesting you mentioned Kabbalah, because just yesterday I was listening to Jonathan Peugeot, who I follow a lot, talking about the Kabbalah and the system and the understanding of. Kind of like the way he explained it is like there's this idea that God is good and he created the world, but in the creation happened, then like creation was kind of a little bit bad or evil or something like that. So God had to withdraw somehow. And so there's a kind of like an evilness inherent in being somehow in that system. I don't know much about it. This is just what
I don't know. It was many years ago, this, and you know, today, you know, we need human beings, we need stories, you know, and Kabbalah, today I see it as one explanation, it's one story in a way. And I would say at that time in my life, you know, I had the need to understand. Okay, I still have the need to understand, but yeah, we human beings have the need to understand what are we in the middle of here, you know. So that was what was driving me up to this point in 2005. Yeah. And then the period after 2005, you know, I felt like I had taget tyren ved hornene. What's that?
Took the bull by the horns.
Taking the bull by the horns. Like something has left my system in a way. You know, like I had faced this anxiety in myself, and I had moved with the energy. I had done. I would say it was a shamanistic way of dancing with this energy. I did, and something settled in me, and there was an integration process after this, and I started different projects. Like, you know, all the time I had this. Okay, this is what's possible. This is what's possible for human beings. We can be together in this really beautiful way without competition, where we just unfold our creativity and rest in our knowledge that we are completely loved by God, which we are, you know. So I had this in my heart all the time, and I, you know, wanted to share this, like in the beginning, like a missionary man, later, like I would like try to facilitate groups.
This is that you had, I know, like constantly, like all kinds of new initiatives and like beautiful, very idealistic projects about like circular economy and sharing and open creativity. And
and I think
constantly and making things happen as well.
Actually, So there's something genuine about that, and you also have to be aware when they are not grounded, you know, and you know, I would still consider myself as a person struggling to be completely grounded, you know. So my tendency is to, you know, okay, this is the paradise, and then there's something real vulnerable about being right here, right now, with all of who you are, with these visions, or this longing in a way, and that's still. I'm still on that journey.
We spoke a little bit earlier about this word eros. And I think I brought it up actually because I get the idea that you're a man who's seen something that he fell in love with. And it was kind of represented like this African woman was an icon of God for you in some way. And she kind of broke through your barriers, and that's ignited like a longing in your heart. That's been drawing you ever since.
That was interesting, because I would say the experience was a knowingness. It was like a clear, crystal clear knowingness. And then just 1 week after this experience, I fell in love with a woman I met. I would say that was for me this was all I longed for. Was what I was telling myself and feeling at that time. So I think our nature is love, you know, that when we express our natural state of being, we are love, but the experience back then was like a knowingness. I would label it that.
That's powerful. It's a powerful force that can drive us to very far distances.
And it has been my ally in these years. No, I felt really also need to break free from the community I was a part of. You know, break free from the way my family viewed me and the way my surroundings viewed me. So I was also engaging in. I started a project. I think we was 3 participants back then I thought, this should be a world movement. Was my idea. I think we were 4 or 5 people or something like it. Project Daubry, we called it. Like do some Project Dawn. Do something. When it's Valentine's Day, you should do something out of the ordinary. It was like out of the norm, like walk backwards in the street, go with an umbrella even though it's sunny. So I did quite a lot of these things, not just on Valentine's Day, but I felt I could feel my palms being sweaty when, for instance, I would go to the supermarket with big chunks of silver paper on my ears and suit and tie. I would deliberately separate me from and
so you're just kind of like trying to break the norms of everyday life to try and give yourself and other people an experience of like
I think it was
wake up. It sounds like
it was first of all like to myself, like I was demolishing old thought patterns in myself about who I was, and that was part of my journey.
Breaking down the old to make space for you somehow.
And it has really
and it sounds like you don't regret a moment of anything that you've done
because,
at all.
Today, for instance, with there was this period in Denmark where you have to wear the mask all the time in the metro, and I felt the need. For me, I like to breathe, and I didn't believe in the mask, and I respect people who believe that the mask really protect them, but I didn't want to wear it in the subway or in the metro or in the buses and so on. And these experiences earlier where I did these things with deliberately separating me from the crowd helped me in these situations. So I could be relaxed, like have a relaxed state in my body when I was sitting in the bus, for instance, even though I was the only one sometimes without a mask. And I think that is a real jewel, to acquire this, that you can do something. I believe this is true. And you do it even though everybody around you is, that's a gift.
So talking about the things that you've got out of this journey, then you also seem very much like a man who knows where he wants to go. And so let's talk a little bit about you established the center, but then maybe let's move on to so a year ago you decided to move out to the countryside and have a very different type of life, I guess.
So in 2020, it was in the beginning of the Corona. I think I had a small reminiscence of the anxiety I felt in 2005. I was probably feeling some anxiety in me, but also the collective anxiety. Everybody was just So, and it was much less dramatic than in 2005 for me, but I was like scared in this, like not scared, I was like feeling anxiety. And I was seeing these 5G masts coming up all over the city, and this time it was not Lucifer that was the bad guy, now it was the 5G masts, and I really, oh shit, I need to get out of the city. And it was not just an idea. I have always been sensitive to radiation, like mobile radiation. So I felt that in the city. So in that state, I posted something on Facebook. Help! Let me find a place out in the nature, and do you have a room I can rent out in nature? And this friend of mine, Nils, he wrote, and the next day I moved to Fyn.
Wow.
And I've been So
and how's that been since you got out there?
There's something with nature and the more slow pace outside of the big cities that helps you to be more grounded, just to be more relaxed in your being. That was the right decision for me. I still love to come to Copenhagen. I'm there two times per month, but I can feel the intensity in the city.
I moved at pretty much the same time, right? Outside of Copenhagen. Copenhagen was pretty much the smallest city I've ever lived in, actually, when I moved there, but I've lived there for most of my adult life. And I'm still trying to formulate this in a way that's clear, like what's actually happening here and why is it that I was drawn into this place where everything is happening. It's like the center, it's the place to be, right? And it felt like, if I want to have a life of meaning and consequence, I need to be there. That was my thought, right? It's like, that's where all the important things are happening. Out in the countryside, I drive sometimes through the province and I just look at the houses and I see the people sitting outside their houses. And you think like, what a bunch of losers. That was my thoughts. I remember having these thoughts of like, what a bunch of like redneck, ignorant, if only they knew all the things that were happening in Copenhagen where I am, right? And so then, there was a process to where I suddenly came to this realization, well, I actually want to get out now as well myself. I won't go into the details of it, but having come here,
that would be interesting to hear. What made you realize that?
What made us realize that?
Did you had the idea for some time that you wanted to leave, or?
It was growing in me. It was growing in me over a long period of time in a very slow way, I think. But at some point it became very clear, like, like this is just not good for me being in here. It's not good for my awareness. I think part of it was connected to when I started realizing how valuable my own attention was, and how scattered my attention has become in the city. How it's spread over so many different things, and the city is just a place where everything's pulling on my attention.
Exactly.
And I realized that that's much more important than everything else. And especially given, I think what helped me was like, given how the online world gives me access to the whole world, the internet gives me access to that. But since moving out here, I've even realized like, even that's not that important. The outer, and I formulated it best, like the outer journey is far less important than the inner journey. And for the inner journey, especially as a man who's moving through midpoint in his life or getting past midpoint in his life, needing to really take time and energy, just like a car. If your car's getting older, you need to be opening up the hood once in a while and making sure things are running well, because suddenly like things can break down, right? And I think you had an experience when you're 26 years old, which most men have when they're 40 or 45 or something like that. Most men live a very scripted life that follows a very specific pattern. I had my experience when I was around 32 or something like that, so it came a little bit later for me, but that was also very early for me, where I suddenly realized like wow, existence is like this massive chaos of potentiality, and I can do anything I want. But actually the things that I think that I want, those are just things that have been planted in me from the culture. So I actually don't know what I want, right? And so I started looking at, well, what do I actually want? And I think that's what you've been doing as well. So but what I found is coming out here is just that, well, first of all, it's a lot easier to figure out what I want, because there isn't people trying to sell me stuff all the time. and I'm also like, they're living in a city, it has this kind of like homogenizing effect on people. It has to have that. It would just be a war zone if it wasn't. You have to have like a group thing when you have people packed in close to each other. But to have them so close to each other, you can't actually have them talking too much to each other either. That's why we don't speak to our neighbors when we live in a block of flats, right?
You can be overwhelmed with too many
too many impressions. So you just close off. And so I lived like with people above me, people next to me, people underneath me, and like you would hear them sounds coming from you, like what what that sounds happening there or something like that. You might hear them like screaming at each other, the neighbors or whatever, right? But you didn't actually dare to go down and like say like, hey, would you like to come and have a cup of coffee and let's know each other, because like there's this kind of like this atomized, like you separate yourself, right? So you end up with this society of people who just walk around on their screens and ignoring the other people around them, right?
And I was really, okay, I have to get out of the city, and the nature is good, city is bad, but now I think, it's not that black and white, you know, maybe it's more about a state of consciousness, you know, it's like because there's something you can, you know, there's a high degree of manifestation in the big cities, you know, it's more fluid, but it just doesn't facilitate going inwards, like you said.
For a young person who wants to like really experience life, then you know, it's hard to, I would actually say, like, being out here, you could really have experiences that could really mold you and form you in a far deeper way, and turn you into a real person. I kind of get the idea, like, cities they don't create people, they create like stereotypes. So even the most people, like the people who are like the most rebellious, like, no, we need to, like, you know, go against everything, you know, it's like, oh yeah, we need to rebel, like they don't get like weird piercings and tattoos and stuff, like they all look the same. They end up becoming more and more of a stereotype in some ways, right?
I would
it's
agree,
like spirit of rebellion. So
so
here I feel like here you can truly find who you are and what you are, when you have the quietness of it. So that's part of it, at least for me.
And I think that feels really important, that we find this quietness and we treasure it, or we like nourish it, we guard it, you know.
So we can talk maybe a little bit about technology, because I think technology plays a big role in this. I would say that time itself is speeding up at the moment. There's an acceleration of the media cycle. I think the most clear indication of this was just like, if you reflect for a moment about like how we went from like Corona to war with Russia, and like, you know, even people out here, people are like, you know, like my neighbor said to me the other day, like, we're at war with Russia. That's like, you know, that's the impression that people have. Like, so there's this like the speeding up of time, right? And I feel like, and we've spoken quite a bit about this idea of transhumanism and how there's a movement to, we started talking about materialism, and like how we focus on just like the physical world, and we've kind of like ripped off any layer of spiritual reality. And so there's a very large movement of people who want to, that, you know, with this as having their faith in this understanding, then want to recreate what a human being is.
And I can relate to it, because I know I was an engineer. I was really engulfed in this. I was working with speech recognition systems and artificial intelligence, and I was fascinated by it. And I can understand why not, you know, a pacemaker can help your heartbeat, and an artificial arm can help you do practical stuff. And so there's a logical, you know, I can see why people are merging with technology. But there's also real, what is it doing to our consciousness? And I'm, you know, if we look out at the quantum field, you know, this is like a little hypothetical, and a hypothesis is that you know, when we move to the extreme with transhumanism, we have this world where people can download their consciousness to a computer, and they are like escaping death by becoming death, I would say. But they think they will escape death by maybe growing a new body for themselves, and they can continue what they think is me in this new body by implanting nanotechnology in it, and memories and so on.
And this isn't like airy fairy stuff.
This is something that's happening.
People that are actually doing
something is too. I don't. It's hard to know exactly how far is it right now, but it's pretty far. You know. So this is a part of our collective consciousness that is invested heavily in this, and this part of our collective consciousness is a part of us. So we cannot separate, you know, it's like the sheep. I see it as the lost sheep that has run away, and to create heaven on earth, we need all the sheep, you know. So we also need this lost sheep of transhumanism.
Well, I would just say, like, all desire is ultimately eros, and all eros is ultimately towards God. But because we have created this kind of like secular shield or barrier to being able to orientate ourselves, then that attention, that desire, that drive gets misdirected in all kinds of other directions. And some of it quite delusional and misguided. You know, I'm not against technology. I'm not even against the kind of technology that these transhumanists are working with. I think that used correctly, all of these things can be amazing additions to the human experience. And I believe that, you know, like, you know, if we just look at the technology that we've created over the last 50, 100 years, you know, like this setup here has extended my nervous system to encompass all, you know, time in the future and into the past, and you know, I can interact with it's really an extension of my nervous system. It's crazy, it's amazing, it's miraculous, I would even say. But the thing is with new technology is that we don't understand the full consequences of it. And it always has much bigger consequences than what we expect. So we spoke earlier about just how the car has transformed local communities in a way that's been incredibly destructive for many, many places. And some places like this town here have been able to preserve a soul in their own local town, but many areas in the world have been, you know, local community has been devastated just from cars, right? And so what is the internet doing? Well, that's also had very, very large effects, like where we're just like sitting and staring at screens the whole time, right? And so it's like normally human beings get technology, just we invent it a little bit too fast and we're a little bit too eager to bring it in, and we adopt it a little bit too quickly, and then we end up falling down in a deep hole, basically, right? And it's hard to get up again.
And we have to pull ourselves up again. And we talked about earlier about, you know, being that the experience of divinity, you know, like God is diversity and unity, God is like have a desire to experience. We have a desire for this experience, and this is basically God having a desire for all kinds of experiences. That's something that resonates with me. I don't know if that would be what you would say, but like as long as we didn't integrate our divinity, you know, omnipresence is like maybe technology where you can be using the internet, you can be anywhere, and you can so these divine properties, we externalize them as technology.
Well, we try and realize, so the transhumanist movement is attempting to create man in his own image.
Like
where my take is like, no, man is already perfect. It's just our lack of willingness to be what we are. To be love what we are. Instead, we think no. And so for me, pride, lack of humility is actually but
lack of willingness to be who we are. It could also be like it's really big, you know. We lack willingness to be who we are, but it's like you have to. It's really big, you know, to take this in that. Okay, you have this. We are in this. It's a little.
I think it involves, you know, to be what we truly are is probably outside of my reach in my lifetime. I believe in aiming towards the highest possible goal.
But you are who you are. I would say we are who we are, but that is this.
It's a paradoxical thing, you know, because there's a potential which I believe that human potential is far greater than what we manage to express, right? And so
maybe, you know, it's I have eaten my part of psilocybin mushrooms in my lifetime, but I had some interesting experiences during these plant medicine ceremonies. But you know, seeing this as an experience, you know, seeing we are part of a really interesting experience, and taking that in is like, I'm still sinking into it.
Sometimes gets more difficult to put words on.
What I would, you know, I really like what you do here with the men's, you have these, you gather tonight, you have some men coming here, right?
Yeah, it's the local gentlemen's club.
And the first time you had this Nordic men's gathering, I had the pleasure of participating in the Nordic men's gathering with you. But this work with, like, what is, the masculine also protects what needs to be protected. And in the center at St. I experienced 6 policemen coming in, quite, it could almost be soldiers just invading your home. This was 6 Danish policemen. They just, their excuse was they wanted to have our CPR numbers because it was during lockdown and we had a totally legal meeting. And they just, it felt like really harassment from their side, and that like woke me up to, whoa, we still can face intrusions of energy, like where we, like with the help of other people in the center, we manifested this. Hey, so the next time they came, we opened the door and said, we stand here, and if you have a warrant, you can come in. But it's like we have to claim this. There's something important we need to claim.
Yeah, and it's maybe related to the masculine being, and I think a lot of people are talking about how this is shifting at the moment, because Northern Europe has been a very safe and comfortable place with a lot of abundance for the last, since somewhere around the 60s or something like
Seemingly.
Yeah.
Because
seemingly
we also, like I was 26 when I woke up, and what had a grip in me was seemingly harmless, because it was the idea of who Johan was. But it's really, it's like.
While there's been material peace, I would say there's been spiritual war the whole time. Absolutely. Yes. And we've lost. So while we've become materially incredibly abundant and rich, we've become so spiritually impoverished. And you see it in anxiety, you see it in suicide. My cousin committed suicide this last weekend. You see it in a study that just came out last week, where especially young girls, the level of stress has more than doubled in just the last 20 years or something like that. It's like over 50% of young girls now suffer from stress symptoms, and like our kids are getting diagnoses of ADHD, all kinds of different psychological issues, which and anxiety has exploded from this corona thing as well. Like people have just been every single day pumped with these numbers of like how many people are dying, And then just 2 days ago, or a couple of days ago, I had someone saying to me like, oh, now I'm following how many people are dying every single day in Ukraine. And I'm like, it's like, why do you want to be filling your mind with that? Especially any connection. There's been conflicts down in Africa and in the Middle East. All this time, it wasn't important how many people are dying there every single day then, right? So the anxiety that's coming out now. So there's this, when I talk about spiritual impoverishment, I would say that it's related to like knowing what to center our attention around. So we don't know how to apply our attention. Our attention is getting scattered. Our attention is our ability to focus this aspect of our being that can create love, right? So our normal thing is that which we put our attention on, we love it. And we can also use it to hate, of course, as well. Right? But those are the 2 basic ways of orientating. And I think that we just don't know how to do that anymore. We don't know how to control that anymore. And so it's just getting pulled basically by, we're run by, a lot of it is marketing and idols of like, beauty or fitness or, whatever, like the right kind of life to be having, right?
There's a strong pull to pull us out of, be right here, right now, be in your body, feel the sensation in your body. And there's a really challenge to that state of consciousness where you're simply present and
and for me, I don't believe that's enough. Like I know there's a very strong movement coming in from like Eastern philosophy that says like all the answers can be found there. For me, like it's like the answers need to be found like in the meeting of heaven and earth. So we can't just be in the body.
But aren't we? Isn't that the human being, or like isn't the heaven and earth meeting in the human being? Isn't that?
But just being in the moment now, that gives you part of the answer. But you need to and I would say the answers would come from our forefathers, from wisdom traditions that are handed down from us, from mythology, from and so I'm an Orthodox Christian, and so that's the system that where I see like there's a comprehensive system where I don't have to worry about lots and lots of things. At the end of the day, I can say like I can focus all of my attention on one thing, and everything else fits in underneath that. I'm not fragmented anymore. My action is always coming from a place of complete clarity. When I get distracted all the time, right? But when as I'm able to focus my attention, I know exactly where to focus it. And like focusing just on like, okay, doing my yoga and feeling this essentialization of my body, that helps, I believe, as well. But I don't believe it brings everything together.
No. I'm also a little skeptical when I also hear belief system, and I respect your faith and your the devotion you have in that, and I felt when we shared the meal, we did this prayer before the meal, and it was really so I feel but I'm also skeptical about belief systems. What is I saw a documentary with Scientology, and not to any way compare with Scientology, but I saw it was Going Clear, I think it was called, and I saw this man. He was recorded when he was in Scientology, and he was like talking on behalf of Scientology, and then afterwards, when he broke free, it was like two completely different. Something had a grip in him, and I'm not saying something has a grip in you because you have an Orthodox faith. I don't feel that, but I was
something has a grip on me. But so there are. If we talk about like we believe there are spirits. Then there are good spirits and there are bad spirits.
Okay, so maybe there's a good spirit connected to Orthodox religion. Would you say that? That's
absolutely. Well, it is. So I think I'll start there with this point that one of the big sources of skepticism and justified skepticism about belief systems that we have in the West today is because pretty much all Western, I'm talking about Western Christianity primarily, the belief systems have been disconnected from practice. So our belief systems are just about like head knowledge, but the human being has been cut off. And you can see how this comes through from me. Like, this is going to trigger some people, but like Thomas Aquinas and the whole scholasticism movement in Western Christianity kind of started rationalizing and bringing in trying to create a faith system which was fully based on just an intellectual understanding of rationality and disconnecting it from the mystery of existence, which is pure chaos really, and thereby the need for practice. And then this started for me in the Catholic Church, but then the Reformation increased it very much. In Denmark here, there's not a single monk, and there hasn't been a monk here since, I don't know if it was 1600 and something, because forcibly all of the monasteries were closed. And this was where the contemplative tradition was driven. This is where people meditated in the West. Since then, no one's been meditating in Denmark for about 500 years because it was illegal. Actually, they got forced. They were, at pain of death, forced to stop being a monk. You were not allowed to be a monk in Denmark anymore. And so there was this deep spiritual contemplative tradition which was forced out of these countries. And so it just became, Christianity became a set of ideas, and so I had to take these ideas from my head and put them into somebody else's head, and they became a Christian as well. It was all about just expressing belief, but it had nothing to do about like the day-to-day practices of
so when you say practice, you mean you meditate during the day? Is that what you mean when you say you have a practice?
So there's a whole set of meditative, contemplative practices which are essential. And it's also fasting, and it's almsgiving as well. Those are some of the basic systems: almsgiving, fasting, and contemplation. It's prayer, a lot of it. And then it's worship as well. So worship is placing your attention on the organizing principle which gathers together the multiplicity into one thing while preserving the multiplicity.
And then when I hear, if I hear, okay, this is something up there we worship, that's a little dangerous to worship something.
It's very dangerous if you don't know what it is.
And do you, can you know what it is? Can you know what God is? Can you know? I don't know. I have a feeling.
We're getting into a deep discussion now. So the goal of the Orthodox faith is theosis, so
what does that word mean?
Theosis means to become God.
Yeah.
So the idea is that that's what God is, and so this is where the Kabbalah, for example, is very different from Christianity. The Kabbalah places God outside of existence, and Christianity inholds this as well. So the Christianity has two ways of defining God. It's called the apophatic and the kaphatic definition. So basically, you can only define God by saying what he not is. Anything that you say God is, actually he's not that, because he's bigger than all of those things. So this guy here, Saint Maximus, which I'm busy reading now, it's called the Ecclesiastical Mystagogy. He actually says that one can rightly say that God does not exist because he doesn't belong to the category of all the things that are existing. But at the same time, this is the paradox, is that we do define God as love, for example. We do define God. And so God is manifested in all of existence and being, even in,
but that's
everything, and in you and in me. And the primary place where we can see it. So this is an icon, right? An icon is it's the Greek word for picture, but it means an image that points towards God. And then my approach to any other human being is as an icon. So my
like a point
my practice of being a Christian is to see Christ in you.
It's like the namaste and
exactly, like namaste, and to even see, it's like to see Christ in everything and everywhere and all being, right?
And maybe that's what I think. I resonate with this, and I think that's really what's happening now. This is what's being born on the planet. This consciousness, and it's just it's pretty wild.
I think a lot of people we talk a lot about re-enchantment, like that the secular kind of shield, this barrier that's been building is broken down. And so spirit is coming back in.
To re-enchant, enchantment is like a spell. Or what do you mean?
So it's realizing the enchantment of reality. That reality is not just physical material.
Like the magic. It's like a magical.
It's the magic of. So basically, existence is this raw chaos, but the raw chaos comes together in beauty and joy, and it's all patterned. It's all patterned, and it all points in one direction. And the direction it points towards you is God. And so God is up, and so in our material universe, since Galileo,
it's also in us.
It's also here, and it's also in everything. So Saint Maximus, he talks about the logos and the logi, and so the logos is the word. It's for him it was just a normal everyday word, actually, but it's also was used by the ancient Greeks, and it can mean so many different things, but you could see it as the organizing principle of all things somehow. So and that could be love, or that could be rationality for some people, even that's dangerous to use the word rationality in some contexts. But anyway, but then he talks about in all things, if you take a chair as a good example, how do we recognize that something is a chair? Because it's actually just this weird chaos, and is a tree stump it can also be a chair, and these chairs can have 3 legs or 4 legs, or how do you try and define a chair? You can still see things that don't fit the definition but are still chairs, right? So but we all recognize a chair when we see it, and so that is the logi, that reality doesn't present itself to our experience as raw chaos, but it actually presents itself as organized patterned things that lead up a hierarchy somehow, actually, a hierarchy of being in existence. So we got quite a lot of high philosophical ideas and thoughts here, I guess. Should we try and wrap it up?
I was just curious, what pages are you on here? Maybe I'm just curious what's in that book. For some reason, we can take that afterwards.
There's this. Maybe I can make something separate about this. No, this is a guy called Saint Maximus the Confessor. He lived, I think, around the year 500 or something like that. He actually had his hands cut off, or one of his hands cut off, and his tongue cut out by the church. because he stood up for a specific understanding of what Christianity is, and at that time there was like a kind of
that's great. Yeah, that's
stuff. Life has been crazy. But there was a definition of what the Christian belief is that was defined at one of the church councils, and he said like that is the definition. Yeah. So there's been some pretty crazy stuff that's happened. Very interesting guy though, Saint Maximus the Confessor.
Also, it shows the danger of defining things too much. If you stick too much to definitions, life is much more than the map, much more than the definitions. So when we have ideas about, for me, ideas is like a map, like describing something, but of course it's
So that would be again in this apophatic definition. Like any idea becomes the next step in your progression becomes the limiting factor that's stopping you from the next step as well. So any idea about God will become the limitation. But if you're very far away from understanding anything, then you need ideas to make progress. It's like a ladder. So you need ideas, but then if we hold on too tightly to them, then they become limiting as well. He got that very much so. I think that he will be, so as a Christian, I believe that Saint Maximus, is a saint. That means he attained theosis. So he actually reached a stable experience of being God. And what characterizes all of the Christian saints, including if you start reading this book, the first like page or so, he basically just talks about how unworthy he is to be writing what he's writing. So it's an extreme humility is what characterizes a lot of these people as well. So it's this kind of like realizing the danger of pride. So we have this godlike divinity inside of us, but if I identify strongly with it, then there's a danger of, this was Lucifer's fall, right? So there's a verse that someone pointed out to me the other day, which I really appreciate, was Moses, he went up the mountain to meet God, and he met God, he was in the presence of God. And then it says he came down from the mountain and his face was shining so brightly that people couldn't even look at him, but he did not realize it. So this is the thing, and for me, that's kind of like, when I think about the moments in my life where I've been able to be a channel for something greater than myself, I haven't always realized it. It hasn't been a conscious performance, right? I get used by a good spirit.
Life is working through you, or God is working through you.
Good. So I mean that, and I think if we're gonna, I think there's something there then for what we're talking about in this video here as well, is like, there are lots of chaotic things happening in life in the world at the moment. I don't know if you want to, should I go first? You want to go first about like, how do we orientate ourselves? Where do we put our attention as we go into, and we can finish off with this.
Well, I would like to, with the onset of this center, Tinkri, we practice the spiritual muscle, we call it, but it's like, we have focus on our breath, on our, the relation to other people. We don't have any phones or online system in the center. So I would say orient yourself to your state of being, and dare to relax into your state of being. That would be my focus point.
And I really like it that you have the community aspect in there as well, that you're doing it as a group of people as well. That are, going in through life with each other and interacting with each other.
And mirror each other, playing out,
Did you say marrying each other?
Playing out different aspects of each other.
Or mirroring maybe.
Mirroring, that was what I was trying to say.
Marrying is also a beautiful and good thing.
There has been a couple of marriages actually.
Really?
I think two couples have at a wedding they have met in Tinkri. I think that's really beautiful.
I mean, I didn't meet Laura, my wife, at Tinkri, but I know she's been there and I've been there. We were both kind of like in this state of searching for a long time. And that's certainly been like a kick-ass spiritual practice, one can say.
Yeah, and you share your faith also, and you share your
that's really that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Johan. Tinkui, I guess there's a website, or how do people find it if they live in Copenhagen and want to check it out?
They can Google a spiritual fitness center, or they can go to tinkui.dk. It's TINKUY.
Yeah. And if I had to say something about it, it's like an incredibly accepting place where people can come from all walks of life and be there and experience themselves in a not being judged, not being where they can actually just be themselves.
Exactly.
That's, I think, beautiful.
Nice. Thank you for these words.
What you've created there. Yeah. So good. Okay. Great. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Paul.
It was fun and nice to have you living on the same island, so close by. So maybe we'll get to see each other a little bit more.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah.